Hello everybody and welcome to a Replica Airguns BB pistol review. My name is Michael K and today we're looking at two Umarex low-cost BB pistols. I decided to review both of these guns together because really they're almost identical in nature. I believe their internals are probably going to be almost exactly the same. They just have a different shell on them. So slightly different styled gun on the outside. But internally, and pretty much everything else about them is identical. And the performance, things like magazine capacities, all that is going to be very, very similar. Now there won't be any shooting in this video. I will follow this video up with a field test review. So in terms of actual feet per second, accuracy, things like that, I can't really tell you. All I can say is what's written on paper. And in terms of accuracy, I've heard that these guns don't do too bad. But when I do the actual field test review, I can give you my personal feedback on that. So let's get into this tabletop review right now and go over both of these guns. Now they're both non-blowback, mostly plastic construction. They both use 12 gram CO2 cartridges. They both shoot 4.5 millimeter steel BBs. They both have 4.25 inch non-rifled barrels. They both use a generic 19 shot dropout metal magazine. It's a stick magazine, and you'll find that the magazine that these guns use is very common in a lot of Umarex and even Crosman pistols. Now the XBG weighs 0.9 pounds, 400 grams, and the XBG is this one right here. Now just so you know, the XBG came out before the TDP 45. I guess Umarex did pretty well with the XBG, fairly popular in their low-cost BB gun range, and I believe they came out with the TDP 45 a year later, probably based on the popularity of the XBG. Now the TDP 45 weighs 0.8 pounds or 390 grams, so a little bit lighter. Both guns have a claimed FPS of 410. Now these guns aren't actual replicas of any specific guns, but I'm sure you guys are going to give me your feedback on what you think they look like or the closest proximity. It's really hard to say exactly what gun they're based on. They're kind of a combination of several guns. Now both of these guns come in a plastic wrap. So here's the TDP 45. Right, there are some specifications on the back. Right there, you'll see. Literally identical for both of these guns. Here's the XBG. Same basic packaging. Almost exactly the same information on the back. Inside you'll generally have a manual. You can see it right there. I'm not going to show you it. It's just a basic manual. These guns are very simple to use, very easy to operate. Now before I get too far into this review, I want to show you a couple other guns that are very similar. We have the Umarex M&P 40. This is another BB pistol, similar plastic kind of gun with a stick magazine, and I'll show you the magazine. They all use this same stick magazine. Basically it's a 19 shot all metal stick magazine. So you could mix and match these magazines, which is nice. This guy has a slightly different way that it houses the CO2 or that you get at it. I don't necessarily like this. It's kind of, to me, it seems like something's going to break or something, and it can kind of come off a little bit, maybe too easy, and see how kind of hard to put on. Not my favorite way to get at it. And then I also have the Elite 2, another Umarex BB pistol. This one's a little heavier. I like that the finish is a little bit less glossy than the M&P 40. Again, it uses the same way to get at the magazine. It does hide the CO2 really nice, but a little weird opening it up that way. I don't really like it too much. Again, another similar stick magazine for all of these guns. And they all have this sort of, I don't know if you can see it on there, they all have the kind of barrel that protrudes forward when you pull the trigger. None of these guns have CO2, obviously. Okay, they all have that, and they all share this similar safety switch. Very sort of generic, all of these guns. And they're all double action only pistols. Let's do sort of a side-by-side walk around here. We'll just kind of go on the left side here and look at both of them real quick. You'll see you have your TDP 45 markings. Nothing is working here in terms of slide releases, things like that. Sorry, voice is a little hoarse here. And we do have a metal trigger, and I'm pretty sure it's a metal magazine release. Again, metal magazine, Umarex markings. Now I did want to show you how do you get at the CO2? Now this is very similar to the SA177, how it's hinged on the top and you just pop it open. I like that. I think it looks better. I think it's easier to get to. Nice. Now you do have a little bit of an exposed CO2 screw here, but it's not a big deal. You also have your rail, of course. Now I just want to quickly look at the left side of the XBG while we're here. Again, you have your XBG markings, similar location. Again, everything is molded other than the magazine release. Not 100% sure if it's metal or plastic. It doesn't really matter. You're not going to get a lot of wear on there or exposure to any damage. Again, same stick magazine. Umarex markings. Again, you have the somewhat concealed CO2 screw. Sort of springs back into position. And again, you have this similar SA177 styled CO2 access door. Okay, rail again for accessories, metal trigger, right? Alright, we'll flip this gun around and you can see here we do have serial number, you can focus there, caliber, of course you've got your description here. Now these guns are made in Taiwan, both of them, and pretty nice. I mean, you've got your extractor and you've got your what looks like an ejection port. So in terms of looking like a real gun, you know, especially if you're not too close, it does look like it. And again, here's your, boy, I'm having some focusing problems here. There we go. And you have your safety selector here, right? So you see the red, that's fire, and that's safe. Okay, again, Umarex. Now I do want to point out, I might actually bring the other guns back in. The holes on these guns, in terms of how they slap them together, so they actually have screws that put the two sides together. But this is a sort of solid piece on the top, so they don't have screws on the top. Then they put the guns together with a couple screws here. And I like that they're fairly discreet. When you look at, for instance, this guy, you'll see screw holes all over the place, even on the slide area. And they're sort of a dead giveaway. They're also bigger, so I'm kind of liking the fact that Umarex is making these holes a little more discreet, a little smaller. And that's true for both of these guns. So you'll see here, look at how tiny that screw hole is. There's one there, and there's one here. Oh, one there too. They're really hard to see, so you don't really, your eye isn't drawn to the screws like on some of the other guns where they're slapped together, they're molded two sides slapped together. And again, like I said, the slide itself doesn't have any screw holes other than on the top here where the sight is, probably just to secure it in place. You'll see that on both of these guns. We'll get up there later. But it's nice. It's a lot more discreet. Again, here you've got your extractor, you've got your open, sort of looking, it looks like an ejection port, and you've also got your focus. There we go. You've also got your serial number, description, safety warning there, caliber, all that stuff. Umarex again. Alright, so I'm just going to quickly look. We've sort of seen the bottom, we've seen the rail on both of these guns. Okay, they're pretty much the same. Just quickly looking at the tops, I'll just do these ones together. You can see here on the TDP 45 we have front and back white dot sights. So there's your white dot, front and back. On the XBG, it's just white dot in the front. Okay, not a big deal, but I think this would be a little easier on a dark background. Neither gun really has a recessed barrel, so to speak. Okay, they're pretty much the same on the front. Okay. Alright, let's get right into some pros and cons. Both of these guns are very well priced at around $40. We actually sell them for $39 right now. In terms of cost for performance, I think you're going to do pretty well with these guns. And one thing I like about them is that they have a tried and true design that works. Even though you're not going to find in a real gun the barrel that sort of pops out the front and comes back and acts like the hammer, for a BB pistol it works. And you'll see this design over and over again in many of the lower cost BB guns. Probably because it's fairly affordable or an efficient way to make the gun, low cost way to make it, and it works. It's going to be reliable. I like that these guns both have a nice combination of shots per CO2 and FPS. Now, I'm kind of reading into the feedback I've received from other people, Their comments are that these guns get a lot of shots, they're accurate and fairly powerful, so once I do the field test I'll know more about that. I like the universal metal stick magazine that works in a bunch of these guns so you can mix and match them. If you have a few of these styled low-cost BB guns with these stick magazines, you can just preload up a bunch, take one of them out, and just shoot a bunch of rounds without having to reload all the way through your shooting. Both of these guns have fairly well hidden CO2 tabs. They don't really stick out far out of the bottom. You can see them a little bit if you turn them upside down, but they're still fairly well hidden. You also have rails on both of these guns for accessories like lasers, maybe a tactical light, something like that. And again, the construction screws for putting these guns together, for putting both sides together, are very discreet. They're quite small. Umarex has downsized the holes and made the screws smaller, which makes these guns look a little bit more realistic. And I also like the SA-17 styled CO2 hatch or door. I think it's a lot nicer than the grips that slide backwards on some of the other versions of these guns. Getting into some of the cons, they're mostly all plastic, but that's kind of what you get when you pay about $40 for a gun. So don't ask for an all-metal gun for 40 bucks. Probably not going to happen. Now there's not a lot of actual working parts except for the triggers, the magazine release. Pretty much everything else is molded into the plastic. Now you're going to find these double action triggers, they're a bit long and they're a bit heavy because, well, they're a double action trigger. The first part of the trigger is pulling that barrel forward, which allows a BB to actually be released from the magazine. It goes up into the barrel. As the barrel comes back, it creates a seal, hits the valve, and releases the CO2. So in terms of efficiency, it works really well, but your finger is doing most of the work. Rather than with blowback air guns, the blowback will do some of the caulking and relieve some of the trigger pressure. Now neither of these guns has adjustable sights, so hopefully your gun shoots fairly close to the center of the target. If not, you're going to need to adjust your sight position or where you're pointing at the target. So if it's shooting a little bit low, you'll just have to aim a little high. If it shoots a little bit left, you'll have to aim a little bit right. Alright, that wraps up this review of the Umarex XBG and TDP 45 CO2 BB pistols. Don't forget to check back for my field test review for both of these guns. Also subscribe before you head out. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Username is Replica Airguns. You can buy both of these guns in our brand new Canada Replica Airgun store, which is situated at replicaairguns.ca. We also have these guns, I believe, available in our US store at replicaairguns.com. We also sell a bunch of other products, airsoft guns, blank guns, knives, accessories. So make sure to come down to the Replica Airguns website and check everything out there, including tons of other reviews on all kinds of things. And you'll even find some nice high-resolution pictures of both of these guns in my written post. So thanks again for watching. Until next time, take care.